Diego, and you're tuned in to Breaking Down the Breakdown. On today's episode, we are going to talk about the trials and tribulations of dealing with change and accepting it. Hello, everybody. Guess who's back? Guess who's alive? OMG. I know, right? I was just like, yeah. I am so excited. I know we're still stuck on season 3. You're probably like, is this season ever gonna end? Is this season canceled? Is the series done? Well, guess what? No, it fucking ain't, and it will never be done because as long as there are people out there who are going to need some extra ears to listen to them, we are not going to stop doing this stuff. Anyways, welcome to Breaking Down the Breakdown. It is I, Steven Diego. It has been far too long. I don't remember how to podcast anymore. But today I have a super duper special guest. Just like all of my other guests, this person is super duper special. Not just to me, but to his parents. Okay. But to everybody. He is a fellow streamer. He's one of my mods. Oh yeah, that's one thing that changed now, guys. I'm also a streamer now. I know you guys know that. But anyway, this isn't about me. This is hardly about me, but this is about our next guest. Would you like to introduce yourself? What would you like us to call you? Go on, tell us. Tell us things you would like to know. You would like the people to know about you.
Okay. First of all, thank you. I am Hydro. That's like my online alias. I don't really go by my government name. 23. Currently with 2 occupations. I am like a chemistry teacher for high schoolers. More specifically, like we call it 11th grade. I think that's like, what year is that in the US system? Like they're 17 or 16. Like they're around that age.
17, 16 is like around like grade 11.
Grade 11.
Grade 10, grade 11, yeah.
Yeah. No, they're all grade 11. They're like 16 turning 17.
Okay,
whatever. Okay. I also work for a small marketing company. I'm an email marketing specialist, as Steven mentioned as well. I stream like very, very sporadically because of, well, just 10-hour work days. But yeah, I have a lot of hobbies, mostly video games, watching anime. Sometimes if I'm actually, in the mood, I'll draw, but, it's always like an up in the air kind of thing. And I'm technically done with university. The only thing I'm missing is my thesis. Mm-mm. And if you're asking how I'm a teacher, but I haven't graduated, it is because the school could not find anybody else at the time. So like they just needed someone who's English spoken and actually knows the subject, which in this case happened to be me. So yeah. I don't know. Is there anything else like
I love it. You know
you
what?
Would like to know about me?
What it really was we asked, so sir, what is your occupation? And he said yes. That's what we got.
I mean, I am like, how do I say this? When it comes down to me describing myself, I am, to me, a very average Joe, I'd say. But then I hear the things people say about me, and I'm slowly coming to accept them. Like
lists a bunch of credentials that says I'm an average Joe. You know what? You gotta give yourself more credit.
Yeah, I'm slowly learning to accept that. I am slowly learning to accept that. I do call myself tech support. Like that's another name you can call me. You can literally call me tech support if you want.
All right, I like that.
The truth. What else? The degree I technically will hold in September, hopefully, is in materials engineering and nanotechnology. Very complicated thing to explain. Pain in the ass to graduate from, but we'll just leave it at that.
Okay. So from what I gathered is you are a very accomplished individual, and I love it. And you are exactly what I needed today. I'm really glad you're here to tell us your story. And you know why, right? I mean, so Hydro over here has listened to every single episode that we have done. And, he would know the importance of his story being heard because I want to interview people on every single part of the spectrum of life, right? And today's episode, I had asked Hydro what he wanted to talk about, and he wanted to talk about change. And it's not change in the way that a lot of people, would talk about nowadays, but it is kind of something that is very important to hear because it's the kind of change that we have all gone through in our past, right? Um, Hydro, I do have to ask, what was it about change that really prompted you to be like, okay, I really want to talk about this?
Um, Honestly, it's for me the fact that I struggled to accept change
Okay.
at the time when I first started dealing with like big changes in my life, which we'll hopefully get to eventually in this podcast. Um, I did not know how to process changes. I didn't know how to deal with changes because a lot of those changes happened when I was pretty young. So adapting to them at the time was very difficult. And I never learned how to do like proper change management and change adaptation. So for me, compared to a lot of other people, I'd say like that I've met and talked to, um, change management was very difficult for me. And I know that it is very difficult for a lot of other people as well. Um, so I felt like talking about it because I'd like to, you know, shed a bit more light on how change is actually important in life. And like as you just said, Stephen, um, like change as a term is very vague. And especially these days people use it for like really common things, right? They use it for like, oh, change in like working style because of the pandemic, change in education, so on and so forth, right? But that like these days is just a very vague thing, right? So when I look at change, I think of and see like quite a few other branches of change. So yeah.
No, no. Well said, right? Um, I have gone through like similar stuff as well, and I feel like this is something that is so universal that people don't realize it is worth noting and worth acknowledging, right? Because we have all kind of accepted that this is a part of life, so it's like, well, why do we even want to talk about it, right? Not realizing that if we do talk about such changes, not all of us end up on the better end of it,
True,
like
true. I
for a lot
agree.
of people, yeah. And this is why like it's important to talk about these things. For me, one thing that I really want to ask is, what was the biggest catalyst of change for you when you were
Okay.
younger?
Um, just a bit of a trigger warning for somebody listening to this.
Mhm.
There's a bit of talk about loss of people, both in an actual way, but also in like a more sentimental type of way. Um, when I was 15, when I had just turned 15, so 2 days after my birthday, I'm born in October for context. 2 days after my birthday, my father passed away. Um, he passed away when I was still at school. Mind you, I used to study at private high school back in my hometown. Um, so I had no clue. That day, I knew I had an exam like on the first class of the day. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna, just bust through this exam and I'll be fine. Right. And like in the middle of the exam, because our teachers were like, oh, put your phone on your desk, right? Uh, I see my phone ringing and I see it's my mom calling. I'm like, oh, she might have dialed by mistake, right?
Hmm.
Just kind of tell my professor, I'm gonna just turn off my phone. Is that all right? He goes, yeah, sure. The moment the bell rings and the exam is ended, the secretary of the school like rushes into my classroom and she goes like, what teacher was there at the time? I don't know. I think it was like her math teacher. She goes like, hi, I need Hydro to, come with me. Like, he's like, okay, sure. What's up? And she tells me, oh, like pack your stuff. Like, your mom asked us to take you home. And I was like, okay, like what happened? He's like, oh, your mom will tell you. So at the time, like 15-year-old me, the oldest relative I had at the time was my grandmother. She was like 70 something. And I was like, oh, it's probably, something happened to grandma. Like, worst comes to worst, she passed away. Right. And I was like, okay, I'll come to terms with this somehow. Like, I understand she was, old, very wise woman, very kind woman. She's still alive and kicking, by the way, like by some miracle. I don't know. But I come home, like my homeroom teacher and another teacher drove me home. And I distinctly remember, like I used to live in this like old, like 3-story building. We had like a story to ourselves, and then we had like a loft above the main part of the apartment. And my mom was waiting at the back of the building because that's where cars park usually. There was no parking spot in front of the entrance itself. So I see my mom and my grandmother, like, next to each other. I'm like, what happened? Like that day, I also got a present from one of my friends. I was clutching it in my hands, like hoping that it's nothing bad, right? My mom, in the most calm way possible, and I still to this day like envy her for being able to be so calm in such a situation, just tells me, maybe, like, dad didn't make it, dad couldn't make it. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, mind you, 15-year-old me could not comprehend that my father, who at least up to my knowledge was healthy, passed away. So they take me upstairs. Mind you, I had gone completely numb. I was not responding to anyone. Like, people were talking, like, obviously, there's like the mourning part of a funeral, at least here. And that lasts for like the whole 24 hours. So literally, if a person passes away, at least here, if a person passes away at 12:05 a.m., they mourn until 12:05 a.m. the next day. So that literally happened at my place. So I walk into my living room where my father's casket was, and I just went mute. My mind went blank. There were relatives crowding around me, like, just being like, oh, are you okay? Like, you'll be fine, it's okay, don't worry, like, we're here for you. We'll get to the we're here for you part and like in a bit later. But I just didn't respond. I was processing everything. And the first thought that went through my head was, when I got to the living room, was like, fuck, what now? Like, I never expected to have to deal with the loss of a loved one that early in my life. I know that some people obviously deal with losses of their loved ones far earlier in life compared to me. Like, to some extent, I'm aware that I'm fortunate. Like, I know there's people who have it way worse off than me. And I was just like, I don't know. I sat down on the stairs that like lead up to my loft, just not saying anything, just staring into my phone, because my classmates found out. They started texting me. They started calling me. I was just replying to texts, like, just completely blanked out. And that is probably when I realized that, like, little old me said, shit, man, you need to grow up hella fast. You need to, start figuring life out a lot more. Like, you no longer have a father figure in some of the most vulnerable and most important years in your life. Like, you will need to be the backbone of this family someday, right? Like, I already knew my brother planned on moving out, and I was like, I'm going to be the only person here for my mom. So, like, I processed it somehow. The funeral passed. It took like a day or two for me to start, getting used to like the monotony of my life now. Because prior to that, there was like a lot of yelling in my house. My father was not the best person, I will be very honest. I was never close with him. I wouldn't say his loss hurt me, rather the loss of him, sorry, hurt me emotionally. But the lack of his presence was the bigger problem for me at the time. Because all the work, mind you, they ran a company with my mom. My mom still runs the same company. Everything fell on my mom's shoulders. And as a 15-year-old kid, I was trying to learn ways to change so that I can help my mom. Like, I was practically put on a glitchless any percent speed run of life, if I had to explain it in like some more like lighthearted terms. But I remember the first change I made that day, and it was a change of cutting out relatives. My father has two sisters. Well, had no, they're still alive. Is it has or had?
It's he has them.
He has them? Okay.
I believe he has them. They had him.
Oh yeah. So thank you.
He has them.
So he has two sisters. One of them is older, one of them is younger. That day, they approached me and they walk up to me. Like, who are you? Are you like one of insert older brother's name's friends? And I just looked at them. Mind you, I know them. I know them by name. I recognize them. I might not have seen them for years, but I know who they are. And the only reaction I gave that day to them was, please leave. I'm like, never show up here again. They're like, why? Who are you to tell us this? I'm like, you know whose brother I am, right? I'm like, you know that I'm your nephew. They're like, no, we have one nephew. I'm like, one? Like, okay, great. Well, I'm the second one. Leave. But leave. I'm like, I'm not taking no
Why?
for an answer.
I'm sorry. Can I just ask, why do they treat you like that?
Uh Basically the thing is my brother looks very much like my dad. Both blonde, curly hair, blue eyes. Very strong character-wise. Compared to them, I look a lot like my mom. Like if I were to put a side-by-side comparison of a picture of my mom here, I pretty much look the same as her. The only difference is I have facial hair and round glasses. That's it.
Okay.
And short hair. So they did not like my mom ever. Me looking like my mom and also not being a girl was a huge problem for them. So that day, that is probably the first ever change I made since my father's passing, which was starting to cut off relatives. I know cutting off relatives is hard. I know people who've gone through that. I have friends who go through that. And when my mom heard me say that, she was like, calm down, calm down. I'm like, no, there's no calming down. Like, I've been their nephew since I was born. I'm like, if they refuse to accept me and treat me like an actual relative, I'm like, don't talk to me. Leave.
Yeah.
Like, it's disrespectful.
Yep. Agreed.
So, some of my father's friends actually heard me say this. And they walked up to them and like, can you please leave? They're like, this is supposed to be a peaceful morning. Don't disturb one of the people that's like, you know, actually mourning, like who's actually hurt by the situation. So they left. The funeral happened. They like came to the funeral after it ended because I did not allow them to come. And since then, life was, if I had to explain it, at least for the first year, a complete shitstorm.
Right.
A lot of things changed. Like my family dynamic changed a lot. My living dynamic changed a lot. Sorry, just 1 second. A lot of things changed. Obviously, we lived a slightly quieter life because of all the yelling that I was used to. I was not used to silence. So the first change the next change I made was, you know, learning how to live with silence. I was used to there being constant like yelling, banter, you know, stuff like that. But I had no ways of dealing with that at the time. I didn't have any friends. I mean, I did. I was just not the most sociable person. I didn't really like going out, you know, drinking, partying, stuff like that. Because here you can do that even with when you're underage, mind you. They let you do it.
It's kind of like the Philippines, really.
Yeah, like I had my first party when I was 15. So I at the time I was actually coping with things pretty healthily. I played games, obviously. I slaved away in front of my PC. I don't know how many hours I have on League of Legends. I can check how many hours I have on CSGO. It takes like 300 something, I think.
Oh my goodness.
Give or take. Yeah, I wasn't really good. I just played it to not have to deal with the constant silence.
Of course.
And then another thing that I did was watch anime. I had been watching anime for a while now, but at that point, I was like binge watching. I mean, I binge watched Fairy Tail, the first installment of it prior to season 2, within 5 days. That's 175 episodes.
Oh my goodness.
So do the math. Like,
so wait, so this was like, you were like 15, 16 at this point?
I was 14, turned 15.
Oh my goodness, okay.
So yeah, I was coping with change very healthily at the time, at least for my standards.
Right.
I know people who start doing drugs at that age. I know people who resort to violence. I know people who have anger issues because of it. And like had this talk with my mom like a month or two ago, and she's like, I'm glad you like didn't turn out to, you know, ruin yourself because of it. And another thing I also used to do was going to the gym. I don't do that as much now, mostly because I just don't have time.
That's
Hopefully when I get down to going to one job only, I'll have the time.
yeah.
But
I mean, Mister, I have 37 and a half jobs. Like, of course, you're not gonna have
I
time for
don't
the gym.
no, it's just the 10-hour workdays get to me on an energy based level,
No, for
really.
sure.
But yeah, those are like some of the first changes I made. Learning to deal with silence, cutting off relatives, and just the passing of a parent in my
What
case.
I kind of want to bring us back to, and I think it's a fantastic example, and thank you for sharing your story with that. Like, first of all, obviously, I'm sorry for your loss, right? Regardless of what kind of person your father was, that is still your father at the end of the day. So obviously, especially growing up without one, essentially, um, it brings about that change because it's like what you said. For you, it's more so the fact that you now have lost a father figure. You now have lost that kind of presence in your life. And I guess for me, the biggest thing was the kind of pressure it had put on you to change because he's gone, right? And that's one of the things that a lot of people don't understand sometimes. We have people who essentially, it's kind of like Pokemon where you force evolve something, so
Oh
like a
yeah,
Pokemon, right? And
think of the evolutions. The
right there you
evolutions.
go.
Most of them
It's like
evolve through evolution stones, right? Yeah,
and I think it is actually the perfect example because that's what change does. The change are the different evolution stones. You were just an Eevee trying to live your life, and then you
yeah,
were thrusted upon what kind of change are you going to have to undergo, right? And it's not easy because not everyone is an Eevee,
yeah.
right?
Somebody is like, I don't know. Somebody's like, what was the Pokemon that evolved through an evolution stone? Somebody's like a Pikachu. Think of Ash's Pikachu.
Right.
Like at the time, I
Exactly.
was Ash's Pikachu. I didn't want to evolve. I wanted to
Right.
remain Pikachu as much as I could.
Exactly. And
But
and as you should because you're still hella young,
yeah,
right?
but then comes the issue of Pikachu doesn't want to do it willingly.
Yeah.
He forcibly chooses not to evolve.
Right.
But me, pardon, I was not Pikachu. I was the complete opposite. Somebody basically took an Electrostone and pushed it on me, and I was like, you know
Mhm.
what? Fuck it, gotta live with it.
Yeah, you got
Like
to live
such
with
is
it.
life, I guess.
But that's the thing, right? So this is why this is really important for us to talk about this because there are a lot of people who had undergone change that they never asked for that inadvertently turned them into people or beings that they didn't want to be. And they feel like they have no choice anymore because that is the path that life had taken them towards, right? I do have to ask because I know there were certain non-negotiables in terms of your change. One of which is I'm really glad you chose the path of, wanting to be that kind of support system for your mom, right?
Still am, still holding
And you
strong.
still are. And I do have to ask, like, with that change happening, in order to turn into that person, that support system, was it difficult for you? Or your mom, being the mother figure that she is, did she make that transition a little bit easier? Because I have had encounters where, you know, for example, right? Like I grew up with no dad, right? I grew up with no father. But the biggest change for me was immigrating to Canada,
Mhm.
right? So literally a week ago, I was going to school, playing with friends, right? And
Yeah,
then after, I had to go to school and make sure that I was home to babysit and not make friends. It was a big thing. I was
yeah,
12, right?
definitely. Like
And I didn't understand.
you had it worse than me at an even younger age than
But
me.
I don't want
Like
you to see, and that's one thing too. I don't want
not
you to say those things because it
oh no
is
no.
not a
It's
universal thing. Like it is very unique to like if I had anything I can say, like, you and I probably felt the same exact way because we
yeah.
were ripped from our lives and
Yeah, like
thrusted upon something new.
that's the similarity between us,
Yeah.
basically. Obviously our situations are vastly different. And that's why I say yours from an objective point of view,
Okay.
like get a third person to, be listening in on this and ask them, hey, whose situation do you think is like worse? Someone's that person is obviously gonna gravitate towards yours because one, you were far younger. Two, you had to move to another country. Three, you spent the biggest part of your childhood where you're supposed to be making friends and having fun babysitting. Whereas for me, like when you look at it, I did go through something. Yeah, I lost a parent. I was alone with my mom. Like, uh, I didn't have that much change compared to you. I didn't move anywhere. Still in the same old town, surrounded by the same old people. The only difference is I had to be a pillar my mom could rely on. And she still
It's
does to this
very
day.
interesting for me that you word it like that because for people like me, I think yeah, maybe this is like one of those cases of grass is greener on the other side thing, right?
Yeah,
But
definitely.
for me, but like the opposite of it, because for me, I feel like I would actually rather undergo what I had gone through than to lose somebody at such a young age. That kind of change, it's like, for me, it's like an environment thing. It's like, okay, I just got to get used to this situation. But I didn't really lose a part of me. And I think that's why for me, like, I don't like, I know you don't downplay it, right? It's just that, this is why I sympathize with you and I understand, that oh my god like this is something we need to talk about because this is a huge change because there are people out there in the same boat as you who had lost somebody at such a young age and there were two ways they could have turned out. They could have turned out to be fuck it, it's not worth it, life sucks, I don't give a fuck, I'm gonna live my life. Or they could go the way that you went about it, in which you realize I need to step up because you know what? In order to make sure that my family stays together, like I gotta build a stronger foundation for myself so I can support.
Mm. Something very interesting about that, actually, now that you mention it.
Yeah.
I am probably the reason my mom and her brother still communicate because after my father's passing, they had a huge falling out.
Okay.
It wasn't just one, mind you. It was several.
Right.
My brother studied in a very different environment compared to me. He studied in a private school. Well, mind you, we didn't pay for much for these. I had a 90% scholarship. He had, I think, 100%.
Okay.
So we basically had full rides. Both of us were like top tier students, went on like countless competitions. Some of those competitions took us to different countries. Like I had the like pleasure or displeasure, I don't know how you feel about this, of going to America at the time. I went there twice. First time, obviously loved it. Second time, I was like,
Yeah.
I don't like
Yeah.
New York City as much as I do. I
Oh.
don't like Times Square. I prefer anything but that. But my brother grew up in he spent his high school years in the town I currently reside in. Because I don't reside in my hometown. This should have been for context way earlier. But he grew up, he spent his high school years, in this town with people with a very different mentality.
Mhm.
So that was like the biggest problem they had. My mother, Yugoslavian, right? She had gone through all of that. She had a very different mentality. She was not really fond of change at the time. My brother, however, was very much, I'd say, a pioneer for change. She was like, you know what, mom, pick your shit up. We gotta go. Like, life is not always gonna wait for you. And she refused
Yeah.
to accept some things.
Mhm.
I was stuck in the middle ground of that. And I was like, you know what? Like, I have to now change to, fit two molds for two different people.
Right.
That is the only way that they still communicate to this day. Because, if I was on my mom's side the entire time, right, backing her up, oh, there's no need to change, everything's fine, right? Just coping with everything. I would have not gotten here. But if I were on my brother's side only, I would also lose contact with my mom. So I the next biggest change which I made was one, convincing my mom to actually accept change, and two, convincing her brother to accept the fact that, hey, she is way older than us. She's gone through different things in life.
Right.
She's had her own fair share of shit shows and shitstorms.
Yes.
Be understanding. And I think that's the change I actually made. I learned to be more flexible with my thought process.
Mm-hmm.
Both my brother and my mom were very linear at the time. They were like, oh, point A, point B. For me, it was point A and 6 other points in the process
Right.
to see whether going from point A to point B is the most optimal solution. So, adaptability as part of change is very important, I think. So, learning how to adapt not just to physical situations and circumstances, but also adapting to people is a really big change people need to make in life. I know there's people, I know people like some of my students even, they're very temperamental. Like they will not budge to try and understand someone else's opinion. They refuse to. And then there's me here, like, you know what? Go ahead, talk. I'll listen. I'm like, but I know what I'm saying. I'm like, I have
Yeah.
like backed up proof and evidence that what I'm
Right.
saying makes sense. Right. So yeah, like I am, as I said, the reason those two still talk. Because if I either chose somebody's side or chose nobody's side, that would have been, oh boy. You think me having to like kick my relatives out of my own house was a problem? I'd have to kick my own family out of my house because whoever side I
Right.
took, the other person would have to leave and fend for themselves, which like my brother was like 18 at the time, barely 18 at the time. Like it would not have been fun, neither for him, nor for me, nor for my mom. So
And you know, that's a really great point you've brought up there because again, right, it goes back to what I was saying with change. It really could have gone the other way with you. And I guess what I just wanted to know is what was that initial feeling that the moment you realized you wanted to take on this role? Like, what was it about that change, that situation, right? Like, I do just want to kind of pick your
mm,
brain at it because, you know, I have spoken to so many people who went the other way,
mhm.
you know, and it's usually how society is. It's we always question the ones who had done wrong or we felt like could have done better for themselves, yet
I,
we never question the people who are doing
who
it right.
actually, yeah, exactly. Nobody ever, I hate to say it in this phrasing, but nobody gives a fuck because
Mm,
you know those people paint an image of themselves. Oh, they did the right thing. Yeah, we don't have to worry about them.
peace. Yeah.
Like, oh, you know, you did good. Good job. Like, you know, here, take this post-it. I validate that you've done something good, right? Like, literally, I'm
Yeah.
holding a post-it. But like, somebody who does something wrong, they get vilified for it.
Yes.
They get scrutinized, vilified. Um, it is like I've seen it happen. I've seen friends who turned to the worst.
Right.
I had a friend who, trigger warning, fell into self harm because of the loss of her father. She lost her father the same age I did. Obviously, she's like a fair bit younger than me. She's like 2 or 3 years younger than me, if I'm not wrong. Still a really good friend of mine. But she obviously at the time fell into self harm. She was self abusive, very bashful, very unaccepting of herself. She thought she needed to be a different person to face the world now. And I'm glad I was a friend for her, even for the short time we were friends in high school. We ended up being friends further on as well, but we met in high school.
Right.
She changed eventually. She accepted that, you know, like, how do I say this? She has to live life. She was like we were talking once, and she's like, but I have things I want to achieve. I'm like, well, if you want to achieve things, I'm like, and you stop this now, you achieve nothing. I'm like,
Right.
do you wholeheartedly, earnestly, and honestly want to do that? He's like, yeah, I do. I'm like, well then, Miss Ma'am, you know, get your shit together.
Yeah.
I'm like, I will be here to, be like a compass for you. But I'm like, eventually, as a compass, I might break and I have to leave, and like, you have to replace with another compass. I'm like, but that compass has to be yourself eventually, because
Right.
I have to live my own life. You have to live your own life. It's
You can only support people so much, right? Like
yeah,
you can't have them
exactly.
relying on every single word you say.
Exactly. So I helped her out as much as I could.
Mhm.
We shared the same experience. Mind you, she is an only child. She doesn't have a brother or sister. I had a brother I could fall back to every once in a while. She had
Right.
nobody. She had, fortunately, for both of us actually, we had a really, really good friend group. I had a friend that when he found out about my father's passing and he got off of the school bus, he sprinted, I think it's like a kilometer and a half, like full sprinted to my house to see me. And that person was like, mind you, the first guy crush I ever had in life. So at the time,
Cute.
no, I saw him like a week or so ago, and I was like, this man is still both as attractive, as charming, and also very fun to talk to and spend time with. I'm like to some extent, I'm
Uh-oh.
like, fuck, I wish I didn't move out. I'd get to chill with him, but then I was like, you know what, I moved out for myself. I wanted to move on
There
with
you
life.
go.
So yay
Well,
for another aspect of change.
I guess my thing though, right, as you said that, right? And it's actually funny that you said it that way because I actually wasn't going to go down that path, right? I wanted to pick your brain as a person who did the, I would say, quote unquote, good change. And I will say good change because it's for me, and I feel like for a lot of the listeners right now and the viewers that are, you know, watching or listening to this, it sounds like the change you had made for yourself had actually positively impacted you and your future, right? And I mean, look at what you're doing now with yourself, my friend. That's exactly my point, right? Like people end up going on the other path, and it's so interesting you said that. So I will get to that point, but I do want to ask you first,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
right? Um, so what was it that allowed you to stay on this path of change and not divert from it?
If I'm being honest, during that time of change, during like the transition period, I'd call it, I did have times where I was like, should I just call it here? Should I just like, when I say call it, another trigger warning, I don't
No,
mean,
no, no.
stopping change. I mean, calling it, right? I was like, do I do it? And then I like sat down in like a park outside. I just went for a walk. And I had a really like, I call it think thonk. I was like, come on, Hydro, think thonk. Like, you can't seriously be considering this.
Yeah.
Right? My first thought was, one, you're hella fucking young. Like, you're barely 15. Like, you turned 15 like 2 days ago. Like, look at what you're thinking. Right? Second, I actually, at the time, compared to now, I have different dreams I want to achieve. At the time, my dream was, oh, I want to be a successful like engineer or doctor or like pilot or whatever, right? But obviously that changed. Like I became a bit more realistic about life. And I had those dreams. I had dreams. And I think the thing that kept pushing me was those dreams. And I'll be honest, I had instances where I'd strayed away from the path of change. Like I had moments where I caved. Obviously, it's been 9 years since my father passed. Yeah, this is gonna be the 9th year. And I had my times where I just kind of went like, fuck, man, what if that didn't happen? Right? Had those regrets. And there were times when I resorted to handling my feelings and emotions in regards to the situation with like, AA or alcohol abuse.
Right.
Because as I said, here people go clubbing at the age of 15. As I said, I did it. I am no I leave this out here. My mother knows. I've told her, Mom, first time I got pissed drunk was 15. It was like 6 months since my father's passing. I was still coming to terms. Like I kind of lived in like a state of limbo between those 6 months, but then when that 6 month hit, I was like, fuck, like, god fucking damn it. Like, why did this have to happen?
Right.
And then I was out with friends one Saturday night and I had saved up a bit of money. Like I didn't go out for a while because I was still processing things. So I saved up a bit of money and I was like, I could go clubbing out with my friends. My mom was like, oh, you're finally leaving the house. Like she encouraged me to do it. So she even gave me extra cash. I think I had like maybe like 50, 60 USD. I don't know how much that is in CAD, but the currency here is Macedonian dinar. So it's a very different currency. So with those $60, I think I spent like 40 of them on drinks.
Oh my God.
Yeah. That included shots. And I mean, I don't remember how many shots I had that night. It was close to 15. That's all I know. Some of them were paid for by my friends. They were like, oh, come on, this is on us. I had those kinds of friends. Then there was, what else did I have? I know I had some vodka, had some gin. And the thing that sealed the deal was cheap cognac. God, I never want to go back to that.
Oh,
disgusting
no.
type of alcohol.
That's gross.
Yeah.
I do want to say I want to go to Macedonia now because if $40 can get you all of that, I'm sorry, Hydro. $40 can get you 5 shots or 4 shots here.
Oh yeah.
That's
here, it. There's a place near where I currently live that has shots for like $1.
That's it. I am coming out of my retirement 2 years sober.
No. I will not. I will get you mocktail shots. I will get you mock shots. I will not leave drink actual alcohol. I know how much you value your sobriety and how much it means to you.
No, for sure.
So I would not let you do that. I have a moral compass compared to a lot of my friends. But yeah, that was the time where I kind of said, fuck it. Like, I deserve to do this. I deserve like some form of happiness because material happiness for me at the time wasn't a thing. I wasn't really into gifts. I've told you this. I've told a lot of people this. I'm not a person that is materialistic. I've become slightly more materialistic, mostly because money is a thing, living
Of course.
expenses, rent is a thing, right?
Yes.
And living standards here, like working a minimum wage job covers your rent, but you're left with $50 for another month. So good luck living that. That's why I
Oh
work two
boy.
jobs. So um yeah, like that was the probably one of the few times in life where I said, you know what? Fuck it, just get smashed, get hella fucking smashed. And I remember I had my friends like walk me home. Not in the sense of I couldn't walk.
Right. They just
I
walk you
could
home.
I could walk a straight line. I wasn't
Mhm.
saying like stupid stuff. I wasn't slurring my words. I looked completely sober. My head was just in shambles. Like things were dizzy, things were weird, but I at the time felt a temporary happiness. And that kind of spiraled for a month or two
Mhm.
until I realized that, I shouldn't be doing that. A friend of mine, that really good friend that I mentioned, he was like, "Are you going to keep doing this?" I was like, "Do you really want to do this?" He's like, "Do you really want to keep drinking to cope with it?" And I was like, for now, I'm like, it's, handling the situation well enough, right? I'm like, like a drink a week's not going to hurt, right? But it's bad when it turns into more than a drink at one night. So he was like, need to stop. He's like, I'm quitting now. He's like, if you quit, he's like, if you don't quit, he's like, I'm not gonna, keep you company. He's like, if I don't show up, I know you're not gonna show up. And that really hit me hard. And I was like, he's right. Like, I shouldn't be doing this. I should not be spiraling down a path of substance abuse to keep myself in check and keep myself happy. So that was the next change I made. Probably one of the bigger ones. Learning how to be happy with things that don't involve money. Uh, Gym membership involves money, but I live with my mom. When I told her I want to start going to the gym, she was like, "Fuck yeah!" I did volleyball. Volleyball was a great way for me to,
Love it.
manage the turmoil in my head. I did art. I spent a lot of time being creative. Not as much anymore, just because I don't have the time nor the motivation. Honestly, I'll get to like having motivation one day, but that's for another day. Um, yeah, I think after that, it was pretty much smooth sailing for like the next 3 to 4 years, I think. Yeah, everything was good. Like my mom and I adapted to the new lifestyle of being life being a bit more quiet. We obviously had our moments like when she'd need me for something and she wouldn't like call or text, she'd yell from the floor below, like, Hydro, I'm gonna go grocery shopping. Come help me out. And I'm like, okay. If I'm playing a game, have to
Yeah.
go AFK. League, sorry, I'm gonna
Right.
demote. I'm gonna get reported, I'm gonna get banned, whatever the fuck happens. I didn't care. I was like, my mom needs help, must go.
I love
And we still
that.
have
Wow.
we still have that kind of relationship. We're still very close. And I think the biggest change I'm happy for is that I actually got to grow very, very, very close with my mom over those
Let's
three
go.
years. Uh, we were constantly with each other. Like she would come into my room, watch me play games, chit chat with me. I would go downstairs, hang out with her. Like we'd have coffee together. We'd go out for food. We'd go out for ice cream. Obviously, on days when she felt okay. Like when she wasn't tired from work.
Of
I
course.
would I would even go help out at work whenever I could, right? If they needed some extra stuff done, I was fortunate to be educated in using a PC much earlier compared to my peers,
Hmm.
and that still stays a proven fact because I've seen examples of my peers' work, not the best. Um, and I would help out at the office, so I would go there, help them out. I'd solve tech support stuff. I'd often use that as an excuse to play hooky, leave school early. It was fun. It was fun. And my mom, I think that closeness is what, keeps me like in a really good relationship with my mom.
Yeah.
She she has those days where she's like, "You need to stop calling me." She's like, "You're 24." I'm like, "Mother, if I don't know that you're doing well, I am not gonna feel content in my day."
I
Like
do. Yeah. I feel like, obviously, again, right, with you losing your father, I mean, it brought on this kind of, and I think that's not just with you specifically. I feel like with a lot of people, when they lose someone important to them, it allows them to bond or build stronger bonds with those who are also affected by it, right? And it's in a very healthy way that you were able to, you and your mom were able to lean on each other during that time, right? And I think for me, um, if there is one thing that has been really prevalent throughout this whole entire conversation in terms of your change and how it had impacted you so positively. And it's because you were surrounded by supportive friends, by your mom, by your brother, like really supportive people who wanted nothing but the best from you.
Yeah.
And one thing that, like, it's funny because when we first started talking about change, like I was kind of like, like I'm expecting like, oh my God, so dramatic. Like I had, and
No.
it was, in some ways it was like you having to literally be an adult at 15. It was, right? It
Yeah.
is
That's like
something that's
the
like straight
big
out of a
part.
movie, straight out
Yeah.
of a
Oh,
TV
definitely.
show, right?
Oh, the amount of times I told myself, like, all jokes aside, this is probably one of the ways I kept making my life a bit more positive for myself. I was like, come on, this is your anime. You're the main protagonist now. Come on, you
Right.
got this. Like,
Because it is. That's exactly
Okasan,
it.
you can't leave Okasan alone. You can't leave Onisan alone. You gotta be the dumbass child that, has to grow up super fast. Like, I
Exactly.
sometimes compare
See,
myself
that's
to, like, I compared myself to Naruto a lot at the time. He wasn't a child who got cursed with something he didn't want, who had no parents.
right.
Compared to him, I had at least a parent. But when you look at it, and you even mentioned this, and this plays a big part in change, and I
Mhm.
will stand by this.
Mhm.
When you're going through things, no matter what things they are, positive or negative, having a support system, having
Yes.
people there around you, friends, family, online communities, they are important. Especially online communities. I know, like, a lot of my real life friends, like my coworkers, they discredit online communities a lot. They're like, "Oh, come on," like, because like you, including a lot of my other friends, like from the communities I'm in, are from north the continent of America, right?
Right.
And a lot of your NA, Canada, you name it, right? Like my was like, oh my God, why do you constantly talk about them? Like, what value do you have? I'm like, when I look for value in people, I look for the kind of person they are,
Yeah.
how I can relate to them, what kind of conversations I can have with them, and whether this person is respectful and understanding and not a complete asshole.
Mhm.
So this is why I will always say, and I learned this today, that having even an online community to support you in your endeavors is good. Because some
Yes.
people are not as fortunate. Like,
No.
I've seen people like on social media, on the internet, who were not as fortunate as me to have both angles covered: a real life support group and an
your
online
online
support
support group.
I know people who solely rely on online support groups. And this is why like mental health is a big thing for me as well in change. We'll get to that eventually, because there's a point where I have another big change in life, which is something I'm still battling with. But yeah, support groups are one of, if not the biggest things that impact change. They can impact you in a positive way, but if they're not a support group, if they're just a group who doesn't necessarily care or doesn't necessarily want to, help you out or come to terms with and understand you, that is not a support group. That is people
Right.
who just don't care.
Exactly. It's not a community, right? But that's why communities are important in
Yeah.
the sense that it needs to be like-minded people
Exactly.
who are open to new things and who are open with everybody. But that's, that's specifically, personally speaking, the kind of community I want to foster, right?
You definitely are. You're definitely on that path. Like, and this is like, I'm saying this objectively, not as a mod, not as a friend, but as a third person observer in the situation. You have fostered a really, really nice community. I see the way people support each other, both when it comes down to like mental health, when it comes down to problems in life, when it comes to giving advice. People are there for each other. Like, look at you and I, for instance. Like a month or two ago, I called you about like something I had a problem with, something that was weighing down on me.
Right.
You and I barely talk. We're both busy people. There's also a huge time gap between you and me.
God, yes.
Like, let's not talk about the time gap. It is a whole shit show. But like, how do I say this? We still find time. Like, I don't even know you in real life. Like, who's to say that you're not just a VTuber right now? Who's not to say that you paid a whole fortune of like maybe $60,000? Let's say, I'm like spitballing at the amount there, for you to be this super realistic virtual persona.
You imagine?
Oh God, that would freak me out. Don't give me
Like
nightmare
we meet
fuel.
and it's like a holograph and it's
Yeah, like
I am
that's what I'm
actually
saying. Like, these online communities are places where people can meet people with similar interests, bond, but also have someone to rely on. Like, it's not just you that I'm close with. Like Posh, Sheep, like all of these people. Posh and Sheep are the first
Yeah.
to come to mind because we're in voice chat like 24/7.
You guys are like, yo.
We're the what's it called? The three little piggies.
Yeah, you guys
We're
are
the three little
so
piggies.
cute.
Like, we're constantly together. And I'm not saying like I'm not like close with the other mods, but
No,
they're the
for
mods
sure.
I just spend the most time with. Malo
Yes.
as well. Like,
Yes.
they are people that if I were roommates with them, I would have my moments of fuck, I just want to kick you out of the house. But then I'm like, fuck, that'd be stupid. I fucking love you. Right.
Right.
It's like I know how much these people mean to me because
Right.
when I had like breakdowns, when I just wasn't doing my best, they were there to pick me up. They were there to like give me a virtual hand and go like, yo, you're better than this. Like, you can do this. Come on. So gonna just like not go on a further tangent about this, but communities and support groups play a very big part. I hate saying be careful who you spend your time with.
Oh, but you should.
I know this is gonna sound like a very, very parent thing to say. I am more often than not the dad of the group, but be careful who you spend your time with.
Oh,
I
I
learned this. I learned this very late in life. I learned this when I started college, and we're going to finally move on to college arc. The training arc is over. The real arc begins now. It's called adulthood. Shit.
I love it.
But yeah, basically, I'm going to continue off of that. Unless you have something you want to ask. Sorry, I like interrupted you.
No,
Apparently my
actually,
bad.
all I was gonna say are two things. Number one, I do co-sign that because I have learned the hard way, and it's not just in terms of like just strictly spending time with people. It's we really need to get to know persons. You know, like I don't think it was a waste of time for me getting to know certain individuals, and
No,
I'm
yeah,
not friends with them
it's never a
anymore or
waste of
anything like
time, no.
that. It's never a waste of time. You know why? Because I get to learn about every individual's genuinity.
Oh, hard agree. Like,
It is scary now that people are so good at
At hiding
hiding,
it.
yeah, their true intentions, their true colors,
yeah.
because outwards they come off as nurturing, supportive,
Oh yeah, for
very
sure.
real people, and you don't realize that
Until
it's just
very
yeah,
late.
exactly. So it's very important that you be careful because you might end up like them. But anyways, that's a talk for another time. What I did want to really get into is the big change that you were talking about. Because if that wasn't a big change, then fuck, what the fuck is it? Because that's a pretty big fucking change for me.
Oh, honey, you got a big storm coming. If
Oh,
anyone knows
Jesus
what
Christ.
that
Not
is. If anyone, by the way, context for what I was giggling for those of you watching, because you can't see this on Spotify, but
on
when you said I
Spotify,
co-signed that, I thought my brain went to math.
No,
I
please.
thought of
Please, no.
It's not going to focus, but it says COSIN. For those of you who know
You're
what math is,
a fucking nerd.
yes, I'm fully
No offense to the
aware.
nerds out there. Oh my
We're-
god.
We are legit. We are valid. If anyone says shit, give me their
You
addy.
guys-
I will throw hands. I will throw
This
hands for
world would
science and
not get
education.
anywhere without you all. So you are
True.
more than valid, okay? So stop with that.
No,
But this
I'm
is
just
why
kidding,
people
I'm
like
just
me get
kidding.
to make fun of you because you
True.
are too important.
And I always take it as a joke. I never take that seriously.
Good.
But anyway, moving
But
on
yes,
to
the change because what is this now? Now I'm
okay. So here in Macedonia, it's a common thing when you start university, you want to go to the best university possible, right? It's like a bit of a generational trauma, I'll be honest, but you know, I'm kind of living through it. I'm kind of regretting it at the same time, but then I'm like, you know what? It turned me into who I am, so
okay.
I can cope with it, right? I don't mind it that much. But when I turned 18, I had to move out. I felt the
Okay.
desire to move out.
Right.
So I moved out into the town I'm currently in. I have not left this apartment for another apartment the past 5 years. Next year is going to be the 6th year I've been staying here. And honestly, I might move out if I find something cheaper, if I'm being honest. But aside from that, how to explain this? Moving to uni wasn't that big of a change. I had already been acquainted with the city a fair bit due to my brother, because he used to volunteer. He still volunteers, actually. He's an alumnus for the local group I used to volunteer in, but then on an international level, he is still active. So there's this NGO I used to volunteer in. I say used to because I'm both an alumnus on an international level and on a local level. Um, but right after I graduated high school, my brother took me to like a weekend trip with them. And that was the first time after turning 18 that I got hella shit faced. Like I'm talking, it was a student thing. Like my brother paid for my trip. He paid for my accommodation and for the transport and for the food and everything. Cost only $20. So yay me, I guess. Brother was nice. He's always been nice. Look, if it sounds like I vilify my brother, trust me, I don't actually mean
You
it.
do not. Don't worry. You did not.
I
Not
fucking
once
love the
today.
dude to bits. I fucking
Okay.
love the dude to bits. He is an absolute sweetheart.
Right.
Like all jokes aside. But yeah, he paid for my trip. He did everything for me. He paid for my bus to there because I had to take a bus to there to the city I'm in currently, and then had to take another bus to the city we went to. We stayed in like a little like trailer park camp kind of thing where people just get to stay for cheap and hang out. There's like a big grass area, like a yard, I'd say. It's huge. It was hella fun. It was like the middle of summer. I had just gotten my graduation, like my finals grades. No, I had just finished my finals actually. The week after the Tuesday after that, I was supposed to go on holiday, like on a camp with my friends. And what happened was I met so many people that I never thought I would meet in my life. I'm talking diverse. I'm talking open minded. I'm talking supportive. Like these people to this day, every single one of them, even those who I don't talk with anymore, even those that I've grown distant with, even those that I've completely parted ways with, all of them have been in some way supportive and understanding and caring. Yeah, there's people that I accidentally hurt. I do own up to my mistakes. I always will. I learned that owning up to my mistakes is one of the biggest faults I had as a kid and as a young adult. That when I realized my mistake, I was like, fuck, man. Like I hurt people. I never thought I did. But then when I learned that I did, I was like, fuck, I need to change this. That's not that big of a change. I just decided to take on responsibilities in this NGO that I was in to realize who I really wanted to be. And when I figured that out, I met more supportive people who helped me learn more about myself. I had many failed attempts at things, I had many failed attempts at being a coordinator for things, being in a certain position, so on and so forth. But the biggest change that I went through was, how do I say this? Can a Is it mental disorder or mental illness? Quick, or do they mean the same thing? Is one a more
They mean the same
derogatory term?
things as
Yeah.
I like to say disorder.
Okay, that's what I was asking because
Um,
I've heard you say both sometimes, but I've heard you say
yeah,
disorder more, so I'm just asking for context. But
yeah.
yeah, um, can a person end up getting a mental disorder at any point in life?
Of
Like
course.
you're far more knowledgeable than me. That's why I'm asking.
Yes, it develops.
Yeah. So moving out, volunteering, not that big of a change. Nothing new.
Mhm.
The only change I had was I met new people. I left
Right.
behind old friendships that I realized were just not it. They were not giving what was needed from them as people and as support groups and as friends.
Mhm.
So I parted ways with them. There's some people from my hometown that I still keep in touch with and I hold dearly, nearly, and close to my heart. They're very nice people that I cherish. But what happened was somewhere around, I believe, January or February of 2018. I was in a library. I used to study in a public library for my exams because I couldn't study home. I had a PC, had a bed, a toilet, a fridge, the convenience of a supermarket right across the street. I didn't really study. So I was like, I need to just get out of this comfort zone that I'm in at home and make myself feel uncomfortable to study. And so I did. Pardon. Did it work? Yes, definitely. I passed all my exams in year one, but at the cost of my mental and physical health. What happened was there was this one night when I stayed late at the library. I went home at like 2:30. I was at the library and I started feeling numb in my arms and legs. I'm talking, I could move them, but I started feeling a very tingling sensation. I was like, why does it feel like there's a million needles stabbing both my arms and my legs right now? Right. And I chalked it up to me having had a cold. I was like, oh, it's just a cold. It's fine. Fast forward a few more days after, the same thing keeps happening. And then a day after my last exam, my brother was with a significant other. They were chilling at our place. They were just chatting, having fun, right? His significant other slept over. And what happened was, I woke up at like 3 or 4 a.m. to the typical symptoms of a heart attack. You know, sensation of choking, you know, having a hard time breathing, numb left arm, right? You know, that kind of stuff. My mind and my body just go like, you're dying, wake up. And I was shaking. I was shivering to the very core. I'm talking, you compare me to a jackhammer, I think I'd do the same job if I were made out of metal and I could penetrate concrete. So I walk into my living room where my brother and a significant other were. They weren't even asleep. They were just like watching something on Netflix. I knock at the door. I walk in. I'm like, you guys, I don't feel well. In the most quiet and calm tone for some reason. I was not panicking. My mind was, but I was speaking for some reason very calmly. And my brother's like, what's wrong? You look fine. I'm like, my heart is beating very fast and very hard. Like, I can't feel my arms or legs. I don't know how I'm standing. And I'm like, I feel a shortness of breath. Both of them jolt off of bed and call the EMTs, right? The ambulance. They give them my symptoms. They come over. They do a check on me, right? I'm healthy. There's nothing wrong with me. They are like, your heartbeat's normal. Your breathing is normal. They're like, we don't hear any obstructions apart from like maybe mucus, right? It's a normal thing because you had a cold. Like, apart from that, there's nothing. You're fine. Like, chill. They gave me a shot of diazepam to calm me down. And that's it. At the time, I thought of it as just my body kind of feeling very weak from all the studying and all the work I had put in for my exams. But later on, this happened multiple times. And I mean, in public places, when I was alone at home, when I was out with people, at many, many points in life. And I started getting concerned. So I called my mom. I had not told her about this for around a month, mind you, because like I need to be a strong adult. I can't tell mom. I can't worry her. I call her. I'm like, Mom, we need to talk. First thought she has on her mind is, he got some girl pregnant. She literally said, do I have a nephew or a niece? I'm like, neither.
Oh boy.
I'm like, no, you still just have me and my brother. She's like, okay, good. Then what's up? So did you fail an exam? She's like, I don't care about that. Like, did you kill someone? Did you hurt someone? Did you hurt yourself? Are you in the hospital? I was like, not at the hospital. I'm like, I'd like to be. She's like, why? What's up? So I tell her everything. I give her the loadout of the whole situation. And she's like, okay, let's go to the doctors. Right. I take a day off of uni. Fortunately, that day they canceled class. I was like, fuck yeah, I get to spend a night with my mom,
Yeah.
chill with her, hang out. We go to the doctors that very same day. And my doctor does a full checkup on me. I'm talking blood work, ultrasound,
every single
EKG, everything, right?
It's like a full
The
physical.
results, full physical. Yeah. The results,
Yeah. You're good.
thumbs up, 5 out of 5.
Mm.
I could still donate blood if I wanted to, even at that age. I still can up until this point. I've just never had the chance to. And he's like, then what's the matter? Right? He's like, what could this be related to? I'm like, oh no, dude, you tell me. You're the educated person here. Like, you're the licensed professional. And he like asks me about my life. I'm like, do you do this? Do you do that? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I've just been under a lot of stress for uni, right? He's like, oh. He's like, you need to see a therapist.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, why? He's like, I can put my finger on what's going on. He's like, I can give you a guess, but don't take it as the actual thing. I was like, oh, hit me. I'm 19. I should understand this. First thing he says is panic attack disorder and anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when my mom, mind you, at the time, she did not accept mental illness as a thing. She called it an excuse for laziness.
Right.
She came to terms with it after she saw me having a panic attack in front of her. I'm talking vigorous shaking, trouble breathing,
right, like
all of
the
that.
actual attack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She saw me. She heard me like crying. And I am a person who rarely cries, mind you. She heard me crying in the upstairs bedroom. She ran. She's like, what's up? Why are you crying? She sees me shaking. She knows where my diazepam is because I was prescribed diazepam in the case I have a panic attack. It was not my daily dose of diazepam. I hadn't had a panic attack in a week. It's just that some stress had welled up and that caused it.
Right.
So the reason I'm explaining all of this is one of the biggest changes in my life, apart from the passing of my dad and growing up so abruptly, is being diagnosed with a mental health disorder.
Mhm.
The first therapist I went to sparked a disdain towards therapists in me, mostly because one, I had to wait 2 weeks for an appointment
Right.
because I have insurance. And they're like, oh, if you have insurance, you have to wait 2 weeks. If you don't want to wait 2 weeks, you have to fess up $80. I was like, I'm not doing that.
Mm,
And I'm glad I didn't. I fessed up a tenth of it. I fessed up I fessed up $1. What am I saying? I fessed up an 80th of it because of
Okay.
insurance.
right.
2 weeks passed. I go to this therapist, right? I was slightly panicking as I was walking there. But I get there. It is like this old senile looking dude, double diploma, 2 PhDs, one in psychology, one in what was the other one? Psychotherapy. Right.
Okay.
So he is a licensed professional. I am very inclined. There's a fly in my room. I am sorry. I am very inclined to believe him.
Right.
Right. His word to me was law. We had a 15-minute conversation. 15, 1-5, not 50, 15
Mhm.
minute conversation where he just asked me a bunch of questions that to me meant nothing and made no sense. He asked a healthy 19-year-old male whether he watches adult content. I was like, 90% of us do, my guy. I'm like, I do. I admit
Yeah.
to it, right?
Yeah.
Did you break up with someone? No, I hadn't dated anyone in a very long time at that point. What else did he ask? Are you struggling financially? Fortunately, I wasn't. Knock
Yeah.
on wood. I'm not having that problem now. Hope nobody else has to go through such things.
Right.
And he just asks me stuff. And I'm like, but where's the point where I get to talk? Where's the point where I get to explain what I'm going through instead of you just asking me questions and you expect a 1 to 2 word answer from me? 3 words
Yeah.
at most. So this 15-minute conversation ends. He just prescribes me antidepressants. That's it. No explanation. Just says panic anxiety disorder, antidepressants. That's all you need.
Is this a psychologist you saw or a psychotherapist?
He had those 2 diplomas. I know one of those diplomas is licensed for him to prescribe medicine. I might be wrong. It's been 5 years since I've been to that guy's place.
No, for sure. No, because
I
there
don't
are
wanna go there
psychologists who
again.
do that, right? And that's why
Mhm.
like
No, my current therapist has a degree in psychology, but no, she does not. She's not allowed to prescribe medicine.
right.
I fucking love that woman. God bless her. But yeah, he prescribed me around 80 to 100 milligrams of antidepressants daily for 2 months.
Sorry. Hold on.
Yeah.
Wait. Right off
Yeah.
the bat?
Yeah. He's like, oh, this is a dose I'd give to a
No.
baby. And I'm like, dude, I study
Well,
chemistry.
I guess it does depend on the pill itself.
Yeah.
But that seems like a
I
lot. I'm
don't remember
sorry.
them. I left. I paid the 80 dinars or like $1.50, dollar
Yeah.
a third, whatever. I left. First thing I do is take those prescriptions out of my pocket and tear them to shreds. Because ain't no fucking way at the time, I'm still the same actually, would I stoop to the point of like having to rely on medicine to keep my mind in check. I was like, I can probably handle this on my own. I will have my antidepressants. Diazepam is an antidepressant, for those of you who don't know. I had a 3 milligram dosage, and I used it only in cases when I actually really needed it.
Mhm.
To those of you who are struggling with this kind of stuff, if you are given the ability to have prescribed medicine, do not abuse it, please. You can lead yourself to very bad places. I have seen people take multiple of these and pass out, end up in a coma, end up in toxicology, or even worse, hurt themselves permanently for life.
I will have to interject though, and I do have to say this, right? Like,
Yeah.
Echoing what you're saying, I do agree that, a lot of people, they end up being so reliant on these
Mhm.
things without needing to be. But there is also a flip side of that, in which I do have to tell people, right? Like, I am very much like Hydro in a sense that, well, I was forced to be like Hydro in a sense that
Sorry.
that I can't take medication because I'm allergic to SSRIs or SNRIs, right?
Mhm.
So I'm allergic to antidepressants. And
Mhm.
antidepressants are the very thing that can help people with OCD with functioning
Mhm.
through their everyday lives. Mind you, there are people who do need to be on medication. And this is
Yeah.
where it is very important to be informed, and it is important to see a therapist or a psychologist or a psychiatrist or psychotherapist, simultaneously, I will say, for the very beginning of your diagnostic stages, because for far too often, there are people who believe that they don't need to be taking medication, not understanding that their refusal to do so acts as a barrier for anything that their therapist tells them.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it is very important, but it is also very important what Hydro says. There are people who think that, well, I'm going to pop these. I don't need a therapist. I'm good.
Yeah, exactly. Like another thing I wanted to say was I was gonna draw. I was kind of gonna basically paraphrase what you said, but like I was gonna draw a line between there's people who actually need them
Yeah.
and people whose lives may depend on them. But
Yeah.
then there's people who are very casual with them. People who
Yep.
practically abuse them. That
Oh,
technically
I have a headache. Let me
falls
pop
under.
this.
No,
You
I'm
know?
okay. I'm that. When it comes down to painkillers, because there's over-the-counter painkillers that are harmless here. I do use those mostly because I have migraines from time
That's
to time.
fine.
Like I have gotten MRIs. I'm healthy. I just react to changes in weather. Like I currently have a small migraine, but I've not slept for a very long time. So me. But yeah, like substance abuse is one thing, but actually taking your medication in controlled doses is another.
Right.
If you are given controlled doses, much like I was given, and you know when and how you're supposed to take them, follow along as long as they don't hurt you, right? But in the case you nilly-willy get these prescriptions just to abuse them, just to, feel some kind of relief, I believe that you can be doing so much more without them. I believe that if you're capable of, getting yourself up, knowing that you don't have any problems, mind you, knowing that you're taking these just even recreationally. I've seen people do this stuff recreationally, mind you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Like, don't. One, you're taking up someone's time. You're taking up possibly a time slot that someone might actually need to go visit a licensed professional to get consultations about their mental health.
Amen.
And what I was gonna bridge this to was what you actually mentioned. People who refuse to take medication end up putting this barrier, this void between them and what their therapist is saying. I had done that for far too long. And the moment I realized I shouldn't be doing it is when I changed therapists. 3 years later. I went to this person once, had such an unpleasant experience that I had a disdain towards therapists. I was like, I'm never going to therapy again if they're going to be like this. I'm just going to rely on my friends and family and my occupations to keep me in check. Fast forward between these years of no, there's actually one change that I will mention that impacted my mental health, but in a good way. So yeah, fast forward to me struggling with anxiety for a few months, right? I was finding ways to deal with it. I would often go riding my bike. I'd often occupy myself with hobbies. I'd clean the house. OCD cleaning is not the right word. It is misusing a word. I would compulsively clean my house to distract myself from the thoughts of you're going to die, you're going to die, you're going to die, you're going to die. You're dying, you're dying, you're dying. Oh, you feel this pain? You're dying. You feel dizzy for a second? You're dying.
Right.
My new therapist diagnosed me properly. And she said, oh, you have health anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, the type of anxiety that I'm talking about is if I feel any physical discomfort, like lack of breath, dizziness, shortness of energy, any pain, really, my brain just flicks a switch and goes,
you're gonna die. You're
dying. Like the amount of times I have self-diagnosed as a mistake, terrible thing, don't do it. I even remember you saying it on your podcast once. Do not self-diagnose ever.
Yep.
Only trust the diagnosis of a therapist, was a licensed professional, not therapist, licensed professional, doctor, general practitioner, therapist, psychotherapist, psychologist. Like any person that you know that actually has a diploma and has actual credibility to diagnose you. Don't trust the internet. Internet full of bullshit. I regret doing that. That's spiked a lot of anxiety in me back then. But there came this event that I went to. It was an event I really wanted to go to. It was an event pertaining to human resources in my NGO. A week-long worth of training sessions. I'm talking soft skill training sessions. 12 hours every day. 3-4 hour sessions. It was bliss. During those 7 or 8 days I was there, I only had one panic attack. A single one. And
That's really good.
I left the session that I was attending at the time. I missed the crucial part, mind you. So I had to be briefed by my friends later. But I am proud to say that I met people there. Like, how to say this? We had 6 trainers in total. Each trainer had 3 people with them, like a little group, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
Our group and my trainer at the time, Joao. If you ever hear this podcast, Joao, you're amazing. Me, Joao, and these 2 other girls, we were a very, very quiet group compared to all the other groups. We would grab a can of beer, sit outside on a bench in like this mountain, like in like a hiker's like house, let's say. It's like what it is practically. And what happened was we would just chill. And when these people noticed that I was having a panic attack mid training, and I left the room holding my cup of water, like just literally clenching it, they waited like 2 minutes and then they left the room as well and left to find me. They saw me crying on the stairs and violently like shaking. They're like, "Are you all right? Are you all right?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm like having a panic attack. Like this and this is happening." They're like, "You're stronger than this. You can actually do this.
I love that.
Like take some time, breathe, go outside for a walk if you have to. Just, calm down." They grabbed me by the hand. They got me one of their hoodies. Well, no, actually, they got me my hoodie from the room, put it on me, and took me outside to some cold, fresh air. And that's when I realized that I made another big change in my life. I was like, I need to be brave.
Yeah.
So at the time, I was very, very, very conservative of myself. I was very protective over myself.
Right.
I refused to let myself get hurt. I refused to let myself experience new things because I lived in like this dome of comfort. But then they were like, if you ever feel like this, go. Don't keep yourself inside 4 walls.
Right.
5 walls, 6 walls if you consider the ceiling and the floor, but yeah, what I mean, figure of speech. They're like, just relax, go outside, pop some music on, and breathe. You don't need to do anything else. You don't need to explain yourself to anyone. And those were the things they told me. And those are the things that have stuck with me since. Every time I start feeling anxious, I remember this is just a thought. This is not permanent. This will go away. As long as you are calm, as long as you are rational, and as long as you actually take the time to process this like a proper grown-up adult. So to sum it up, that change was I was finally enlightened by people I never thought I would be close with. To this day, the 4 of us exchange conversation with each other. We comment on each other's stories, Instagram posts, you name it. We joke around a lot. We reminisce about the good old days, I'd say. And that's probably the big change that happened during my uni days. I took on many positions in my NGO. I was a secretary for a year. If you ever ask why I know spreadsheets and Google Docs and emails so well, there you go. There's my credibility. I know event planning. I know human resources. I know fundraising, grant writing. I know a lot of things.
Right.
But I think I've had to, like, how do I say this? Go into the biggest change. Okay, no, second biggest change. It is the pandemic. And I think that goes for many people.
For a lot of people, yeah.
Yeah. During the pandemic, I realized that I have a very, very, very low social battery. Why? Because pre-pandemic, I would come home after an outing with my friends and I would feel drained. Not physically, mentally. I would not be able to hold a conversation for a whole day. Mind you, I live with my brother, who's a very talkative person. Like, I'm not saying talkative as in like he rants or like gloats. I'm saying talkative as in he'll strike up a conversation with you. He'll be like, "Yo, what's up? What are you doing? Like, what's new? What are you like working on?" Right? Pardon. And all's fair in love and war. Like, I would entertain this conversation for as long as I could, and that was like maybe 10 minutes. I was 20. I was 20 at the time, actually. Yeah. Was I 20? No, I was 21. I was 21. Sorry. One second. I'm dealing with a bit of a sinus infection. Well, what's left of it.
You're good. Don't worry. This is why he kind of disappears, guys. If you guys ever wonder.
just for context, I never mentioned it. I usually preface these things, but yeah. So imagine like you're the social butterfly who forces extrovertism upon himself. Extrovertism is not a proper word, but you get what I mean. I
Yes, I get
basically
it.
molded myself to be an extrovert for the longest time, not knowing how much harm it's causing me,
Yeah.
like how much fatigue it's causing me at the end of the day. And I was just like, you know what? This pandemic isn't half bad. Yeah, it spiked my anxiety. Yeah, it kept me on edge about everything. I used to leave the house to run to the grocery store in complete stress and anxiety, double masked, gloves, uh, long sleeve shirt,
Right.
and the gloves wrapped around my sleeves to make sure that no part of my skin comes in contact with anything or anyone.
Right.
I used to wear like a tube scarf to make sure that nothing comes in contact with my neck.
I mean, I don't blame you. When it first happened, we didn't really
Oh,
know.
yeah,
You wanted. It was really bad. People were dying from
it
it.
was
So
scary, yeah. And
yeah.
like, imagine that, but with a person who's like only got 2 hours to go leave the house in the day. Because our
Yeah.
quarantine here, our lockdown was from 5 a.m. until 6 a.m. until 2 p.m. You were fine to be out of the house. Anything more than that, you get fined. And we fined a lot of money. I know people got fined upwards of $200 for it.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I was like, yeah, I don't want that. But I was still a student. We moved everything online. My classes would last until 3 p.m. You can imagine little me stressed the fuck out, running to the store with my tote bags, my phone with like maybe 20% battery on it, on my data, limited, and my earbuds, listening to a lesson and thinking, is there going to be bread? Because
Right.
people here were hoarding. Is there going to be toilet
Of
paper?
course, yeah.
The
they're
fucking toilet paper meme was a
pandemic season.
reality. I thought Macedonians were not this dumb, but my lord, they were dumb. Like I literally went to 2 different supermarkets in the span of 12 minutes.
And it was gone.
There was no toilet paper.
That is insane.
Fortunately, my mother came over and brought us toilet paper.
Right.
Because in my hometown, people weren't as deranged, apparently, over
Mhm.
some cellulose on top of another piece of cellulose. I'm talking about the little cardboard thing. But during quarantine, obviously, socializing was not allowed. We
Right.
were all stuck home, left to our own devices. Who can do what? Good luck. Quarantine, obviously, I saved up a lot of money. I paid off a medical bill that I had in Germany. Nothing bad. I just gave myself a panic attack, ended up in the hospital because of it. I was fine though. I was completely healthy, so yay me, I guess.
That's
Paid
good.
it off on my own. My mom knew nothing until I actually paid it off. Score.
That's
Adulting.
good.
But people were struggling. People were struggling because I knew a lot of people who were social butterflies, and they were like, "Fuck! Like I'm getting anxious. I want to leave the house and drink with my friends."
No,
And
for sure.
I was like, "Why don't you just do it online?" I'm like,
Yeah.
You have Google Meets, you have Discord, Zoom, Facebook Messenger, Instagram Messenger. I'm like, there's so many ways to do it. Like, but it's different in real life. I'm like, I get that, right? But we're in a situation where you have to adapt. We're in a situation
Yeah.
where you have to change.
Exactly.
For me, this change was actually beneficial. Yeah, the anxiety and the stress were there of one having to take exams mid-pandemic. They forced us to go take them on site. We were not allowed
Right.
to take exams from home. Unless it was a presentation, but who cares about those? I had a double
Mhm.
monitor set up. I was living my life.
You were fine. You were totally fine.
Was I cheating on exams? I don't condone it. I'm a teacher now, but I did. I
Don't
did.
say
There was some.
that.
No, okay, I'll be real. There were some exams that the professors were being a bit too demanding. They're like, I want you to know 400 pages for 4 questions. I'm like, excuse me, I'm not doing that. I will answer 2 of them.
happens.
I will answer 2 of them for passing grades, so you're not suspicious of me. But I
And
actually
then
answered
like,
all
you still-
4. I actually answered all 4, and they gave me a really good grade. I was like, fuck yeah.
Well, hey,
Anyway,
you
back to
got
what
what
was-
you wanted. Yes.
Exactly. Back to what I was talking about. Yeah, so it benefited me. I finally got the rest I needed. I finally got the longing for mental respite after like 2 years of constantly socializing every day. Like I'm talking getting coffee with friends, eating lunch with friends, going out for drinks, like going out to parties, going out to
Right.
like group things for my NGO. I finally caught a breather. I finally got to catch up with friends that I met on the internet.
Right.
I was like, fuck yeah. Valorant came out at the time. You have no clue. I was the first out of our friend group to get the beta key. I spent 3 days just reading, playing, testing, learning. I was at the time the most knowledgeable person in our friend group. I felt accomplished for something so minor because I finally had the time for it.
Right?
Because my brain wasn't like, oh, I don't have time for games. I don't have time for self-enjoyment.
No.
That's the issue I had. That is the change I had. I finally learned to take time for myself. And I transitioned that even post-pandemic. I meet up with friends. I go to work. I do this, I do that. I stream, I play games, I talk with people on voice chat.
You learn to manage your time, essentially, you know?
Yeah, but I learned to manage it in the sense of I learned to finally, out of those 24 hours I get in a day, to find 2 of those hours from strictly myself.
Yes, exactly.
Because
And that is what it is.
Yeah, I used to dedicate a lot of my time to other people. I used to be a people pleaser. I used to, this is a phrase in Macedonian, licking people's ass to, get on their good side. The proper phrase is,
all right.
The proper
it's the same
butter.
as a kiss ass, but
Yeah,
same thing.
Here we say, do you want me to say that in Macedonian?
Sure.
Ližanje gus literally translates to licking ass. And that's what we call it. I finally gave up on being that type of person.
Right.
I was like, I can finally be my actual self.
Right.
Because at the time, I had been experimenting with my sexuality, like my sexual orientation preferences. For context, I'm bisexual. And if someone tries to say, do you have a preference? I don't. I know people go around saying, oh, if you're bisexual, have a preference. I don't. I don't feel like I do, nor do I say that I do.
You don't need to explain yourself at all, Hydro.
No,
like, that's all
no,
I'm
no,
gonna say to you.
I'm,
You know,
I'm
like
just
honestly, like it is what it is. Like
I'm just putting it out there.
Who you like.
I'm saying it in the sense of if someone says that you're like this, like if someone tries to put you in the mold of bi people have a preference, no. You're valid to say you don't have a preference. So stick up for yourself.
Yeah.
And
all right, go on. So then?
Yeah, then like post-pandemic, like a lot of my friends are like, oh, you don't hang out with us anymore. I'm like, no, I hang out with you, just less.
Yeah.
Like, why? What's the matter? I'm like, I want time for myself. I'm finally prioritizing my mental health, my physical health, and I'm finally catching up on my interests. So, like, once I learned that, I learned that from my new therapist. I ended up getting a new therapist somewhere in the pandemic, like late in the pandemic, where like I had a bit of a panic attack in the shower, caused me shower PTSD for a few months. Doing great now. I can take a proper shower. I used to take baths, for context. I wouldn't shower. I would soak in the tub. Right. But this lady is the person who told me, start being yourself. Stop putting a belt around your neck and your arms and your legs to force yourself to fit into places.
Yes, that is so important. Oh my God.
That is by far the change that I finally am coming to terms with. Still kind of accepting it. Still kind of realizing that, I don't fit into the societal norms of my home country.
Right.
But then there's also the instance of I fit into the societal norms of different countries and different communities. That's why I will say I have less in real life friends, but have more online friends, because in real life, I don't happen to meet as many people that I share common interests with.
I was going to say.
And like when my therapist told me, be unhinged, she meant it in every context you can take. You can take the phrase be unhinged in. Did I finally start being more comfortable with my sexuality? Yes. Did I finally start being more flirtatious, more outgoing? Yes. Did I become more introverted? I was always introverted. I just finally came to terms with it.
Right.
And my therapist has guided me through a lot of my panic attacks, a lot of my anxieties. And that's like probably one of the things that I will preach about. If you are in the position, and it's a position of privilege at that, to go get therapy, to go seek counseling for your mental health, do it. If you are not able to, I can't list resources off the top of my head. There's plenty of online resources which are either free or more affordable for you to like work on yourself and help yourself.
Right.
But yeah, I think the problem I had with that change that I'm still kind of going through with is the society here. they're not accepting. They're very judgmental, very scrutinous, very
Mhm.
rude and mean about things. Like
Right.
they hear you talking about oh, I went on a date with this guy and this girl. We were talking about having a threesome, the three of us, right? You're gonna get these glares from people, and you feel them. You feel like there's someone like jabbing you in the head with a knife, like looking at you from the table behind you at a cafe. And the way I finally realize I'm coming to terms with this change is, you know what? Just start ignoring it. I hate saying this, but there's things in life that you just do not need to give a flying fuck about.
Exactly. I
You
completely agree.
like, look, you failed an exam, go retake it. Boo hoo. You failed an
Yeah.
entire subject, retake it. Whose fault is it? It's actually yours.
You can't always respond emotionally to things
Exactly.
that are out of
Exactly.
your control.
Exactly.
You really can't.
Exactly. So, like, moral of the story is, if you make a mistake, don't start pinning. Like, this is the thing I used to do as well, and I'm finally over it. I stopped pinning blame on others, started actually being honest about things.
Right.
So, like, TLDR, the pandemic basically let me realize who I actually am. I am far more myself than I was 4 years ago. I might not be this honor roll student I expected myself to be. I might not get the prize they give here to student with a 10-0 GPA, which is called the ring of an engineer or whatever the fuck it is.
Right.
It's like this just very fancy titanium ring. That's it. I may not have met people's expectations, but I'm finally happy and at peace with who I am. And that is definitely the biggest change. I've overcome
I
some
love that.
adversities. I can't say that the adversity I've overcome and the problems I've overcome are super fucking like scary or bad. Yeah, I will say it again. People definitely have it far worse off than me. Like there's people who are definitely struggling to make ends meet in life.
And I will say this. I will say this, right? You are in your world. In your world, that is the equivalent of that. So I don't ever want you taking that away from yourself, right?
Never. But
Good.
yeah, how do I say this? To anyone listening and like starting to figure out things that they want to change and they need to change. The one bit of advice I can give you that I haven't given so far is be brave. Don't limit yourself to what society says is correct. There is many ways for you to help yourself that are just not condoned by society, but are actually helpful. Like take my situation for instance. Seeking therapy here, you are pinned as a person who has to go to a mental institution ASAP. But in other countries where people actually understand the concept of mental health and people actually understand that change is part of mental health as well, they'll say, oh, you should go see a therapist. They will definitely help you. But here they're going to be like, oh my God, you need a therapist? Can't you just, grow up? I'm like, I'm one older than you, most likely. Two, I live in a different age. Like when my mom said, oh, this is laziness. I'm like, no, it's not. I'm like, come be in my shoes. Come take 3 exams, one after another with no break.
Right.
You're studying for 3 weeks. You barely pass your exams. You barely get any sleep or any food. I had gone days without food because I chose to sacrifice my like physical health over my mental health. And I'm going to say it again. Be brave. Challenge the norms that society puts for you. Because as much as society is around you, the only person who can actually properly help you is you. And you're probably saying,
Amen.
oh, you said therapy, right? Both you and I say therapy. Both you and I say therapy is important. It's good. But if you don't actually take time to absorb like what your therapist or psychotherapist or psychologist are saying, you're not doing anything. You're wasting their time. You're wasting your money. You're wasting your time, right? You're
a lot of
wasting
people don't realize
resources.
the therapists are there to just provide you with the tools that you need to use for yourself.
They give you guidance. They give you information. They give you methods to work with. They don't tell you oh, this works for everyone. No.
Right.
I know people are like, oh, just breathe in, breathe out. No, I do box breathing. Why? Because it's what helps me.
Yes.
Do I do box breathing mentally? No, I literally take my finger and draw a box in front of me.
Right.
People look at me weird. I've had to do it on the bus.
Doesn't matter. It's what works for you.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. So be brave, be an active listener, and understand. You're going to meet many people in life. You're going to meet people that'll help you, people that'll hold you back. Those that actually help you, you won't always have the time to check up on them. I'm going to be real.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yep.
Steven and I here, we don't always have the time to talk like this. Like I completely forgot this is a fucking podcast at a certain point.
And I'm glad. That's the point.
We went way over the time we allocated. So
It is okay.
So to whoever's listening to this, I'm very sorry that you're listening to me rant, but this is something that I want people to hear. I want people to know that change is never easy. Change takes a certain level of how do I say this? Mental fidelity and mental like gymnastics in a sense. Like that's what I like to refer to it as.
Mm-hmm.
You're basically constantly thinking and trying to unravel these things in your head.
You need to be adaptive in order for you to accept change.
Exactly. Think of yourself as Ditto. If anyone knows Pokemon,
yes,
you know
that is actually perfect. That is a perfect reference.
Ditto is my favorite Pokemon, actually, next to Mudkip. Mudkip for life. Water starters are the best. Fight me.
Mudkip is cute.
Yeah, Ditto is probably my favorite Pokemon because it is Pokemon that can adapt to everything. And as a person in life, you will face many things. Moving from country to country, changing jobs, like changing changing educational institutions, even changing majors, changing interests, changing partners, even like I have not changed the partner in a very long time because I don't have one. Haha. But that's just because I chose not to.
This is his call, guys. If you guys are interested in Hydro, I will post his socials right after this. Okay?
The one social I have left publicized because of my students.
That is okay.
Two technically. Like my Twitch is there, but I don't always have the time for Twitch, sadly.
That's fine.
But yeah, talk. Find people, be brave, and accept that staying in a phase of eternity is never a good thing. I want to pull up a quote, if you don't mind me, from
Go ahead.
Let's character
end this off with a nice quote.
This is a character I really recently started deeply relating to after finishing up a part of one of their parts in a quest. If I could just find it.
Of course.
What did I name that document? Because it's in a document.
While Hydro looks for this character, I do want to say some parting words. First of all, I do want to say thank you to Hydro for taking a time out of his day. This man is coming off a 24-hour stream to celebrate his first year on Twitch. So, no, he did not stay up all 24 hours. Thank God the man had some sleep in him. But I did want to bring him on in order to discuss things like these, because for somebody who had gone through what he had gone through, I feel like it is so weirdly unique to him, but at the same time, is so relatable because there are so many of us who at some point in our lives have been in Hydro's shoes. The only difference is Hydro's been in every single one of us. So, I felt like it is important to have this man talk about change and just for everybody to hear his experiences and what these changes had turned him into. I feel like it is the kind of light and hope, as cheesy as that sounds, but it is what we all need right now. It is what we need to hear in this very moment. Because yes, while the pandemic is kind of starting to slow down, if there's anything that the pandemic teaches us, it's that anything in the future is possible. And we need to really be prepared for it mentally.
I will.
But yes, I just want to say thank you, Hydro, for
it is a pleasure.
This.
It is both a lifelong wish come true for me, but also a pleasure.
I'm glad. Now, what is this quote you want to leave us with?
To those of you who, I know you play Genshin, but to those of you who play Genshin Impact, first, to those of you who don't, I'm going to be talking about a character who is a former god. Still kind of is a god, but lost her position of privilege, let's say, in a sense,
Mhm.
because she gave up the source of her power. She's still
Okay.
powerful, just not as before. Her name is the Raiden Shogun. She
Mhm.
is the most recent one of those god tier characters, let's say, that got
Right.
released. And she in the game strives for this thing called eternity. Now, the thing with that eternity is she has cursed and plagued a lot of people with it. She's taken away people's ambitions, people's will to live, people's hope for the future, right? So there's this quote that she says, "Perhaps if only time stands still, will the lightning's glow never fade." This is a quote I go by because I can take the time to make time stand still for myself
Right.
by enjoying moments so that the lightning's glow doesn't fade. But as of recent events, both that character and I understood that lightning's glow does have to come to a fade. Sometimes lightning just has to be that zap in the sky
Right.
and it has to go away. So embrace change. Don't be afraid of it, and make sure to, how do I say this, not shun yourself for it. You are your priority, nobody else. This
I
is,
love that.
I don't know how to
Wow.
end this off,
Who
but
would
I
have thought it would come from a video game? Thank you, Hydro.
it is a pleasure. Thank you rather for having me on here, and
No, of course.
for giving me the chance to hopefully be a voice of reason for someone, and to hopefully be motivation or guidance for someone in their life to find it in them to actually accept and embrace change. I hope
can't
that
guarantee anything
no,
much,
I
but the
I
most
have
I can do
I have
is
no
say that
expectations.
it's possible. Not possible, actually. I was gonna say I don't usually make promises on certain things, but I
No,
do
no.
promise you
I
there's at
understand.
least one person out there who is going to identify with this. So consider yourself, you know, already have helped somebody. Because if it's not them, then it's me. You know what I'm
I was like,
saying?
what was I going to say? I wanted to say something. I don't have any expectations, even if I don't help myself.
Love it.
Pardon. If I don't help anyone, I have at least tried, and for me, it's
Right.
that effort that matters as well.
That is important.
So
I love it.
I must sadly depart. I wish I could keep going.
I was like, what are you saying bye? I gotta say bye. Hold on now.
I mean, don't I say bye first? Doesn't the guest
No,
say bye
no,
first?
no. That's not how it goes.
I'm not used to this.
We say bye together, okay? All right, guys. Again, thank you so much, Hydro, for doing this with us. Now you can find Hydro on Twitch. It is
HYDR _OH
_OH on Twitch. If you guys would like to just follow him, ask him questions, there is, an option to DM people on Twitch, but we have to protect Hydro's identity because Hydro is a teacher, and we got to make sure he is protected. But yes, thank you so much for enlightening us and sharing your insights on change and your personal experiences and journey. Thank you for being brave enough to talk about it. And thank you for making a difference in this world the way that you do. I am Steven Diego. This has been Breaking Down the Breakdown. I cannot wait to see y'all again. I am back. You guys can find me on Twitch. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on YouTube. You can find this podcast on YouTube. You can find this podcast on Spotify, on every single platform out there for podcasts. It's been great. I will see you all soon. And remember, always be kind and compassionate to other people, even if you absolutely do not like them, because you know what? They need it the most. I will see you guys. Thank you again. Good night.